And technically, we don't have to meet. Um, so part of the reason I didn't have uh, the the syllabus and the schedule posted was initially I was waiting for folks to finish responding to the survey, and then I gave up on that, and then the okay, right, so now there should be a schedule visible in Blackboard, so we'll look at that in a second. I wanted to give people an opportunity to respond to the survey. I believe all but maybe one or two people didn't respond. And also, like some of you, I have some perfectionist tendencies that I have sometimes more or less success overcoming. And so I wanted to be able to give you the syllabus for the entire class, but I've never taught the supervision part before, so I didn't have it. And because of the move and because of the transition and on and on and on, I didn't have it set and ready to go. So I didn't publish any, or I didn't post anything. And then I thought, that's ridiculous. So what I've posted now is the stuttering half of the course, and that'll give me time to finish the supervision half of the course. And so the syllabus and the schedule cover the first 7 weeks of class, because at week 8 we'll transition. Now, that being said, if we get to week 8 and we have barely covered the tip of the iceberg on stuttering, and you guys are still feeling like, oh my gosh, there's so much I don't know, then we'll go from there. We'll still have Darlene Robke come and talk to you about supervision in your CF experience, and we'll move ahead, a little bit with that. But if we need to keep covering some things for stuttering, then we'll do that. So don't despair. The reason, and I think I told you this in the initial email, the reason we're covering the supervision piece is now that ASHA has the guidelines set for SLP assistant certification, we will start seeing programs having students go through to meet the criteria for SLPA certification and practice. And what that means to you guys who are going to come out with master's degrees is, as time goes on, you're going to become more, it's called operating at the top of your license. So you're going to become more of doing assessment and writing plans, and then teaching your SLPA how to implement plans. So your role is going to be more supervisory, potentially, as time goes on, and as SLPAs become a more embedded part of our practice. So in anticipation of that, and the standards are going to change also, for you guys, for the master's level folks, that this supervision piece is going to be required. So the purpose is to try to get a jump on that, so that you are ready when that happens. Or If you choose to take students in the future, which is also a possibility, there is a possibility that you may be supervising students who are going for SLPA certification, because they're going to have to do that too. They're going to have supervised hours as well, or you may be supervising master's level students like you guys are now. So that's the shift, and that's the idea. So I want to show you, I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to try to pull it down into, so what I'm looking at is in my eye line, but if it's all over the place, that's why. It's just all over the place because I've got a bunch of stuff open. Okay, so I'm going to start here. Are you guys looking at Blackboard? It should say schedule 21 Zoom schedule. Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to start at the top. So I tried to get rid of everything except for so that when you come in, you're not having to try to navigate through a bunch of stuff. Now it looks like something I don't even recognize. I do love Blackboard. It is my favorite thing. So now it looks like nothing's showing up. It's the best. Oh my God. Okay. Hey, will you guys sign? Oh, let's go. All organization content. Nope. That's not. Oh my God. All right. I'm just going to share the Word documents. Can't even. New share. All right. New share. Let's do. Okay, so on mine, it's showing that you're still looking at, tell me what you guys see. Are you seeing a Word document? Or are you seeing Blackboard?
A Word document.
Hallelujah. Okay, so let's roll with that. So here we go. So this is the syllabus. I was trying to make it easier to read by staggering stuff. I don't know whether it actually helped, but this is my information. These are all of the different, I was told when my teaching portfolio got reviewed that I need to add in the CAA and CFCC standards that this particular course addresses. So there they all are. I'm sure you will be riveted. So you already know that these are your course materials, these two books. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to get them. I have these, any number of these. Hopefully soon I'll be able to share a chapter I co-wrote with Ellen Kelly and Kara from Vanderbilt and Kara Singer from, I think she said Grand Rapids. I'll have to look, but it's still it's with the editor. So I'm not sharing that yet. Okay, so make sure that you download or save to the cloud or whatever. I'm going to show you all of the different stuff that's in, well, theoretically, in the assessment folder for stuttering. So this is just technical support stuff. Because a lot of this is online, I wanted you to be able to have all the tech support crap. But here's where the rubber meets the road. Here's where the points start to come in. So according to the way you guys responded to the survey, participation points are for SimuCase are appealing. Totally get that. What I would have done anyway. So I'm glad we're on that same page. But I did add a caveat that you will get your full points if you attend debrief sessions. So what I will do when we start doing debriefs is set it up so that we will have assigned times. Like, so I picture just making a Google form and having you sign up for times. The other thing I felt like I could do, because SimuCase, what is it? I think it's 15, like no more than, isn't that what we did last semester? No more than 15 per debrief group. What I could also do is you could come into Zoom and I could put you out into oh my God, I'm sorry, I just blanked. Rooms, separate rooms, and you could talk amongst yourselves in smaller groups about the case, and I would move between them. And then that way you guys we could do it that way. But bottom line, there are 4 simulate cases that we're going to do for this semester. I don't think there are any of them for the supervision part. Actually, I know they're not, so not yet anyway. So we're going to do 4. That'll give you 40 points. If you have to do them to 90% competency, it doesn't matter what mode you do them in. It's all good. So, and then just participate in the debrief, and that's 40 points right there. The other thing you're going to do is everybody is going to do 5 Stutter Talk podcasts. These podcasts are awesome. They're awesome. And you may feel like, oh, great, that's one more thing for me to do. But this is, there are hundreds of them, and you get to pick your own, like they range from how is stuttering portrayed in Judaism? How is stuttering portrayed, or how is stuttering portrayed in the Bible? And he talks to a priest and a rabbi. And then other things like he interviews some of the top researchers in the area of stuttering. And he also, they did one, and the host his name is Peter Reitzes, and he's usually the host, but now it's gotten so big and so popular that he has other people that co-host sometimes. And I listened to the one, bless you, Tyler, year before last. They did a summary of presentations from the ASHA convention. It was Awesome. So I think you're going to like these. This is kind of it's not one of those things that, you're going to have to break your brain over. You're going to listen to the podcast and you're going to answer these 4 questions. And you get 5 points per podcast. You have to do 5 of them total. So you're going to, you just have to answer the question, why'd you choose it? Because there are so many, literally hundreds of them to choose from. So I want to know, why did you pick that particular one? And be honest, if it's because it was the first one at the top of the page when you hit the website, fine, just be honest. Or be creative, whatever you're comfortable with. What did you find the most interesting about the particular podcast? What's something you learned that you didn't know before you listened? And what about it may inform your future assessment or treatment of stuttering? So 1 point just for turning it in, and then 1 point per answer to the questions. So it's not meant to be I don't expect you to have like a page or even, an essay per question. I just want you to answer the questions, and, so that I know for a fact that you engaged with the particular podcast. So the next assignment is you're going to do an assessment summary, and I'm going to talk to you about that more. And then we're going to do a role-playing exam. This is the way I have done the exam for years up until last year, and then COVID made everything so nutty that I didn't end up doing it. But I do feel like it's a really valuable thing to do. I will let you choose your own groups of 4 to do it. And we'll talk about that more a little bit later. So here's how the points for this part of the semester wind up. You will have 315 points by mid-semester. And really, these are going to be, this part of the semester, the stuttering part of the semester, is going to be the bulk of your grade, because it's it's one of the core things in our field. So the supervision one is probably going to be is going to be discussion boards, class discussions, maybe some low stakes quizzes, things like that. But this part of the class is going to make up the bulk of your points. So, all right. The rest of it, I'm not going to really go through. I want you to, take the time to read it. I used to have this big, super militant paragraph about late work and makeup policy. And then like I was rereading it as I was putting together the syllabus, and I was like, just don't do any of that. It was like, X number of points off for this and that, and past the due date, blah, blah, blah. You know what? Especially now in the age of COVID, yeah, I'm not doing that. If you're running late on an assignment, the only thing that we probably won't be able to kind of push or do late will be the role-playing exam, because it's you're in a group. But everything else, and if it's even possible, like if something comes up and in the role-playing exam is a problem to get done in the time frame as I've set it up, then talk to me, please. Please talk to me. My goal is for you to feel confident about what you know about stuttering, and also um, to feel like you can reach out. A lot of what we do for practice as SLPs is collaborative, it's interprofessional, it should be. So reaching out for help, support, and ideas from your colleagues and peers is what should happen. So anyway, my late work makeup policy is talk to me and we'll figure out how to get it done. Incomplete grades, like if, God forbid, if something really goes awry and you need to take an incomplete, we'll figure that out too. Yeah, we're gonna instructional methods, we're gonna try it all basically. Um, I am firmly committed to diversity and inclusion as a practice, not as a number. I want you to be able to express yourselves in whatever way you want to express yourselves. Um, all I ask is that it is respectful to the other people. Um, as far as I'm concerned, being professional doesn't mean you operate with no feelings. Being professional means that you do not um, adversely spew your feelings onto other people. So that's what I'm asking for. I'm not asking, I don't want or need you to suppress your feelings. What I would like people to be able to do is express their feelings to express their feelings in an environment where um, we can listen and be respectful of each other. Okay, so that's a lot of what this part says. Civility. Um, okay, course communication. I am really, really trying this semester to answer emails promptly. Um, I can't promise you that I will always be able to do that. Um, so I will try to get to you within 24 hours if it's Monday through Friday. One of the things that has become was pretty clear to me pre-COVID, but is abundantly clear to me now in the age of COVID is we need to do a better job with having boundaries on our work and home lives. Um, Scott Yaris, the first author in your textbook, and I were chatting, and he said, we were talking about the whole work situation, and he said, we're not working from home, we're living at work. And there has to be some boundary to that. Otherwise, you're going to go insane. For you guys, unfortunately, in the place you are as graduate students, your ability to make boundaries is obviously very different than mine. That being said, I still encourage you to really think about that and really think about how you can make really specific dividers between work and home life for your own mental health and sanity. So, because unfortunately for you, I'm in more of a power position than you are. I am setting the boundary for myself that I am not going to answer. Amber alert. 3-month-old black male, black hair, brown eyes, last seen wearing a red and white striped onesie with blue pants, possibly in an unknown silver 4-door sedan with Virginia registration. So if you guys are out and about in the world, keep a lookout. Oh, sweet Moses, your family. Ooh. Okay, let's take a moment to hope little baby and the family are okay. All right. Wow. Just can't even imagine. I can't imagine, actually. Thankfully, just haven't experienced. Okay. So I will try to get to your emails as quickly as possible, but potentially not on a weekend. So we'll see how it goes with that. If you are struggling with anything, please, I'm begging you, please talk to me. Don't struggle alone. Learning is not about struggling. It's about finding the answer and attaching new information in your brain, usually old information. So if you're having trouble, please let me know, because I don't want, sweet Moses, I don't want you to struggle. Okay. This is just the usual. After that, emails will be sent to your ODU email unless you've got it set for something else. Make sure if you need to contact educational accessibility so that we have the documentation to make sure that we are meeting your needs as a student learner. Please don't hesitate to do that. It is not a sign of weakness or inability. It is a sign that this is you, and there are accommodations that help you meet your potential. That's it. It is not a judgment thing. All right, I want to talk to you about the schedule. All right, are you guys looking at something that says CSD 656 weeks 1 to 7?
Yep. Yes.
Thank you. Okay. So this is, again, this is just the stuttering content because I wanted to get had to let go of the wanting the perfection of having had it all planned out because that just wasn't coming together. So in Alexis, I wanted to say thank you because it was your email today that just made me say, you know what, this is ridiculous. I need to, I have to let it go. So I appreciate that. Sometimes we all just need a nudge to get over ourselves. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. So, all right. So the first 2 weeks are already gone. Looking at filling out the survey, trying to get our class co-created. So tonight we're going over this stuff, and then I'm going to get into assessment. So the way this is going to work, the reason I set aside 3 weeks for assessment is pre-treatment. It's not just answering the question Is this a person who stutters and describing, is this person, does this person need treatment? Yes or no? And describing the severity and behaviors, et cetera, et cetera. It is pre-treatment. You're figuring out who this person is and how their mind works and what they are bringing potentially to the treatment process, that will help you inform your goals, the type of treatment that you want to use, where you're even going to start with treatment. So, and honestly, I will tell you, like, as a student and as a clinician, it took me a little while to really understand. Like, I truly remember having kind of an aha moment during an assessment, watching my mentor, um, when he pulled off this really beautiful, um, like, pre-treatment part of assessment. He had been telling me that, oh, well, assessment is really just pre-treatment. And you're setting yourself up for, and you're setting the client up for what expectations for treatment might be. So in this assessment portion, though, in order to do an assessment, you have to know some stuff about stuttering in general. So, because you have to be able to answer the question, is this stuttering? So you have to know what is stuttering, what isn't stuttering. So I'm going to try to embed all of that into the assessment process. So it's going to be the nuts and bolts of how do you do an assessment, but I'm going to try to frame in the pieces of what am I looking for and why am I looking for it? Why would I do this part of the assessment? So hopefully that will work out. All right. I just opened the chat. Okay. Do please chat with me, because it is deadly dull I feel like I'm just talking to myself, which is one of the things I hate about recording video in general. All right. So that's the syllabus. There's the schedule. So the assessment we're going to do, is this stuttering? We're going to go through the nuts and bolts. And then I'm already going to assign the stuttering assessment summary to you now. Now that due date says it'll be due in 2 weeks, but we'll see. We may end up pushing that date depending on if we're getting things covered. Now, I actually do have videos already about how to do the stuttering assessment summary. It's in Blackboard. Hopefully, if we can actually see it, we'll go over that in a minute. And then I'm assigning you the first semi case, which is Ben. He is a 5-year-old male child. And then tonight, I'm going to assign you a discussion board question about assessment. It's going to be really like profound and deep and difficult, so be ready for it. I think it's going to be something like, you know what, I'm going to surprise you with it, because I have an idea, but you'll be fine, is what I'm trying to say to you. It's going to be, okay, I'm just going to tell you. It's going to be, what do you think the key pieces of assessment are? And what do you think is different about evaluating a person who stutters versus a person with a different kind of communication disorder. There you go. Something like that. So that's going to be the first one. And then the next 3 discussion boards, and actually I may add another one in there, and this counts towards your the next 3 discussion boards are going to be on Stutter Talk podcasts of your choice. So this kind of, the purpose of this is to kind of push you to make sure that you get all 5 done. So the first 3 you're going to talk about in the discussion board, and then the remaining 2 you're just going to turn in to me. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome, thank you. And the thumbs up, I appreciate too. Okay, that's fantastic. And then, so we're going to do a simu case a week, and starting with Ben. So we'll do the debrief on Ben next week. We'll continue with assessment. And then what I'm picturing is that towards the end of this block of time, this 4:30 to 7:30 time, I'll do the debriefs, because I know for sure that there's at least one student whose practicum runs till 6. So we'll do the debriefs for the simu cases at the end of our time frame. Yeah. So we'll do Ben next week, and then Molly, then Jack, then Fiona. And then on week 7, we'll set it up so that you guys can do your sign up to do your role playing final. So, and I'll describe that to you. I actually have a rubric built for it in Blackboard and all of that, and I'll share all of that with you. All right, any questions about all this stuff?
Dr. Richels,
Yes.
is there any chance we could do Fiona first?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Thank you. I have a college student on Tuesday who,
That's right.
for
I
a
was
fluency
like,
assessment, that would be super
yeah,
helpful first.
like when you said that, I was like, oh, because I was going in chronological age, because that's the way my brain works. But you're right, that makes more sense. And let's go in reverse then. We'll do Ben last because he's a little, and then we'll do Molly before him, and then we'll do so we'll do Fiona, Jack, Molly, Ben.
Thank you.
Sure.
And are you gonna have to change that in Blackboard too?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oops. Yeah, Fiona. Okay. So, all right. So that's the plan. I'll change it in Blackboard while I'm thinking about it. Oh my goodness, there's so much going on my screen right now. I don't even, okay. No. So I have, I'm going to try to share my screen again. I know I sent you the link originally to the next several today. The link I sent you was supposed to be like a recurring one, but Blackboard actually has this feature now where in schedule it has it lets me put in Zoom meetings, and so you can access them through Blackboard, and then I can just start them from here. So I will try to send an email reminder to use the link in Blackboard from now on. Put that on next week, because this week I forget. Any questions about that? Are you seeing Blackboard? On my screen share?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so one of the other things that Blackboard had, see where it says Teams up here? I love Teams. I was like, cool. So I made us a class team. I don't know what I'm going to end up doing with it, if anything, but for now we have a class team, which is exciting. So we'll see what ends up occurring with that. All right, so we've talked about the syllabus thus far. We've talked about the schedule. Let's make sure it's the right one. Yes, okay, good. So we're going to start with Fiona as the first SIMU case, and so we'll debrief on Fiona next week. And then use, like when you click on schedule, use the Zoom meeting thing to come into meetings from now on. All right, so the bulk, well, the good stuff is in the class lectures spot. So I want you to look in the assessment module. Good, that is off. So this module has a lot of information in it. And I really, really, really would be grateful, and you will be happy if you download the information that's in here. It's good information. You will use it in your lives, along with this book and the other book. These, I have read a lot of stuttering textbooks, but I love this book. This is a great book, both of them. It is literally a practical guide. You will be so glad you have it, because someday, and it may be 15 years from now, a stuttering client will darken your door or your Zoom meeting, and you'll be like, oh, snap. Nobody says that anymore, but I was gonna swear and I decided not to. What do I do now? And you will have the answers, because you will have downloaded this information that's in Blackboard, and you will have the book, and you will be ready to go. All right, so there's a lot of stuff in here. This is the chapter on preschool assessment that I wrote, obviously not yesterday, co-wrote with my mentor, Ed Contour. It's funny, when I was looking through these books, Scott Yaris and I are academic siblings. So he is, jokingly, he is one of my half siblings, because he worked with Dr. Contour at Syracuse when he was, again, jokingly, when he was in his first marriage to Syracuse University. He mentored a bunch of students, and then he came to Vanderbilt and arrived the same year I did. So I am a product of his second marriage to Vanderbilt University. So Scott Yaris is my academic half brother. So anyway, it was funny when I previewed these books, when I was trying to decide if I was going to use them for this class, how similar the way we think about stuttering and the way we assess stuttering and the way we talk about stuttering is. So as you read this book, I swear you will hear my voice in it. And actually, the voice you're hearing is the voice of our mentor, who was one of the gurus in the area of stuttering. And not only that, Scott and I have also been shaped by not just Ed's mentoring, but what has evolved in the area of stuttering over the years that we have not been students. So a lot of that is reflected in, or some of it at least is reflected in this chapter that I swear to you is, it's ridiculously detailed. It is a how-to of doing a diagnostic. If you skip the end part, which is like the researchy part, the rest of it is how to do a diagnostic for a child who stutters. Scott Yaris is he and another friend of ours, Bob, oh God, I'm going to get his last name wrong. I think it's Queasel. I always want to say queso because it looks like queso from, in Spanish, but it's not. I think it's queso. But anyway, they are the creators of the Oasis, which is an awesome instrument too. Now, again, I'm talking to you from my bias, but I feel like my bias is also very informed by SLP evidence and by experience. So I recognize that Scott's way of thinking about things is feeds into my own biases. But I know a lot of folks in the area of stuttering, and the vast majority of us actually think about stuttering this way. So we're not alone. We're not the outliers here, at least. And again, that's a whole nother thing on bias, but I do believe, I know that it is also backed up by data. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. The ASHA practice portal, hopefully, yes, is been updated just this year or just in the last year. If you're unfamiliar with the practice portals, you should get familiar with them because they're awesome. So this is all of the practice portals have a evidence map, and this is where you can find like this systematic review of interventions for adults who stutter, non-pharmacological stuttering interventions, just good stuff. So it has both adults and a child in here. Like when we first did it, it was just it was really just related to childhood stuttering, but now it actually covers fluency across the lifespan. Come on, for real? I can't go back. There we go. It's great information. It really is. Blah, 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 talks about, and then it also spends some time talking about cluttering too. So it's just, it is a great jumping off point for any of the disorder areas in SLP. Are you guys, can you give me a Zoom show of hands? How many of you are familiar with ASHA's practice portals?
We talk about it in just about every class.
Awesome, because you should, because they really are fantastic. Okay, good. And not just my classes.
Yes, all of them.
Awesome, good. Because I mean, they really are just such a good jumping off point. Okay, I'm glad to hear it. So I had privilege is the right word. I had the privilege of the first round when we did the one on childhood stuttering. I actually authored part of it. And I was on the team that built the original practice portal for childhood fluency disorders. So, which is not the only reason I'm a fan, clearly, because I didn't have anything to do with this round and I still love it. And I think it's awesome. So where I really want you to please download and save is here, the forms for stuttering diagnostic. I have it split out into the different parts of assessment. So forms and things you may want for spontaneous speech measures. And then this is, it's not comprehensive, but it's stuff that you might want to use. So like Megan, I know your eval is coming up and we've actually talked about this, but the adult interview form is a jumping off spot. Some of the questions you may not like, compare it with some other interview form that you may have seen or used. All of these things are potentially useful to you, not just right now. So please do yourself a favor. While you have access to Blackboard, you will never have as much access to as much information as you do right now as a student. So just FYI. Okay. So it's split out by parts of the of an assessment. So there you go. I'll take that out because you're not going to have an exam to remediate. I learned that the hard way. And got rid of that thing and forgot that it was still sitting in there. All right, so class lectures. This is where the PowerPoints and this is where the information lives. So I'm going to incorporate in the characteristics of stuttering information, like as we talk about assessment, but I'm leaving this particular module in there just so that you have extra information just in case I don't get to all of it. All right, any questions about that? We'll talk about pseudo stuttering and treatment and those kinds of things, because it's a huge part of the way I think about treatment, or part of treatment anyway. Okay, so all of that is in the characteristics of stuttering. We're going to talk about motivational interviewing as part of the assessment process. I don't know that we'll get to it this week, but we'll definitely talk about it before we get to the end of talking about assessment. I'm going to save you from historical perspectives and of stuttering. I may wind some of it into what we talk about with assessment and treatment. but instead of actually spending lecture time on that, or your brain time on that, we're not going to explicitly do that. And then etiology we'll talk about along the way too, like as we go through different pieces of assessment. And then treatment, this may evolve as we go along. And then freaking Blackboard was kind enough to bring it in, I think 3 times. So I'll try to go in at some point and delete all that, but if not, just ignore it. All right. Any questions about what is currently visible in Blackboard? Nothing? Hey. All right. And let's go ahead and move on. And yep, I did that. I'm going to new share. Recording. All right, so let's get to it. You know what? I said I wasn't going to try captions, but it could be, it might be entertaining. So, you know what? No, I'm not. I just, no, not doing. Okay, here we go. So when I was conceptualizing how to do assessment in diagnostic, I thought about it as, well, what is the anatomy of it? Like, how do you put it together? How is it put together? How do the different pieces of it interact to make this total, essentially the total package of what an assessment is supposed to be? So, the way I think about it is that there are 4, hang on. All right, I'm back. Okay. So the way I think about this is there are the different pieces and parts. And so spontaneous speech, the interview part, standardized testing, and then your recommendations and referrals. And honest to goodness, in my head, this is the anatomy of any communication assessment you are going to do. You are going to have some measure of spontaneous communication, whether it's a language sample, whether it's a phonemic inventory, whether it is an intelligibility count. All of those things are part of any evaluation that you're going to do as an SLP. And same thing for the interview. You're never going to get out of any assessment without having to interview the person, that either the person or the family, or hopefully under all circumstances, you are interviewing the person with the communication or suspected communication disorder, and their family and caregivers. So when I use the term family, you have your family of origin, your blood relatives, and then you have the family you choose. So that may be a spouse, it may be it may just be your best friends that are more than your best friends. Okay, so anybody have people like that in their lives, like the people that they rely on for care and comfort and stability? And The question is, do any of you have family, people you consider your family of choice? So the people that are your family, but do not share DNA with you. Thank you, Kira. Nobody else?
I have some from camp when I used to go to a sleepaway camp in the Poconos. One year, my bunk, we just all were really close and we still keep in contact today and we talk all the time. And I consider them like a second family or detached, another family that's just not blood related.
Thank you. Yeah. So when you're doing when you're doing communication assessments, these are the people that you want to talk to. If Lexus showed up with her, if one of her camp family were the ones that brought her to the evaluation, then those are the people you need to talk to, the people that are going to or truly invested in the care and communication of the client that you are in the process of evaluating. So always always some sort of spontaneous, it does not necessarily speech, but communication, some kind of spontaneous communication sample, always some kind of interview. And then you always have to have some kind of standardized testing. You have to have some quantifiable measure of what's happening. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a norm referenced or a standardized norm reference test, but it has to be something that you get quantifiable data from so that you can describe the person's communication in as much detail as possible. And then you always finish that off with some kind of recommendation or a referral for treatment, not treatment, etc. Okay, so for the purposes of stuttering evaluation, these are the things that I think absolutely should be part of a stuttering evaluation, whether, and we'll talk about kids versus not kids. So if you look in your book, I've got the early childhood stuttering book from me. You're going to look at the child. So he starts, this kind of starts in chapter 3, where it's how do I know if he needs treatment? So Scott, Dr. Yaris uses he because in stuttering, males are 3 to 5 times more likely to persist in stuttering than females. So in folks who start stuttering as children and continue into school age and beyond, people who are assigned male at birth tend to be 3 to 5 times more likely to persist in stuttering. So there you go. Okay, so looking at your book, starting at chapter 3, you will see it starts with the getting the big picture. So the part on page 51 is really talking about the interview. So we'll come back to that a little bit more. So Dr. Yaris describes it as multifactorial assessment, and that's what I'm describing to you, is you are looking at and looking for a lot of different factors to help you determine, is this person stuttering? If it's a child younger than, well, honestly, I would say 5, but the literature says 7-ish. that if it's a child who is younger than 7, you want to know, are they going to persist in stuttering? So if they're stuttering right now, we have to make some decisions about, is this someone who ultimately needs treatment? And that's what assessment is all about. Okay, so the disfluency count is kind of at the center of the thing. So in your book, though, on page 52, it talks about doing, can you guys see that?
Yes.
Is it in focus? Ish.
It's too small for me
It's
to.
pretty tiny.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I just want to show you that this is the table. It's on page 52 in the one with the train on the front, the early childhood stuttering therapy. So page 52, and it's the overview, this gray table that you can barely see is overview of a complete early childhood diagnostic evaluation. And he talks about these things that that we're about to talk to you about, doing the observable speech fluency, and that's the disfluency count. We used to do speech rate. I'll talk about it a little bit, but I don't know that it is a crucial component of it at this point. And then we also, and I think you should do this again, just kind of as a good practice for assessment of children. It is doing an MLU or doing a language sample, and it's SSI 4 every year. I'm like, oh, I need to fix that, and then as usual, I promptly forget. Okay, so the disfluency count, and you'll find in your book too, when you get to, I'm sorry, I thought I had it marked. I think it may have fallen out. One of the things that he talks about so this piece, disfluency count, starts on page 63 of your book, and he actually gives you examples of different tasks, different settings, different tasks, different times that you could do the disfluency count. And he also says that you get a sample of at least 200 to 300 words or syllables. So in younger children, doing words versus syllables is the same thing because they mostly produce monosyllabic words. And an adult or an older child, you may want to do it in syllables, like do the disfluency count in syllables, because we know that people are more likely to stutter on multisyllabic words. So dealer's choice on that one. All right, so then as you're listening, you're trying to keep track of the fluent words versus disfluent words. So a disfluency is an abnormal pause or interruption in the forward flow of speech. So actually what I did just then, like as I was trying to think about what I exactly wanted to say, in defining disfluency was in a way a disfluency because it was a weird pause. So we classified disfluencies though into essentially 2 types. Stuttering, some researchers and folks call them stuttering like disfluencies. we talked about, I am a member of the coordinating committee for the ASHA Special Interest Group in Fluency and Fluency Disorders. It's SIG4. And there are 19 special interest groups right now. And it is only $10 to join as a student. And it gives you access to the to publications, and also gives you access to the community board, where people ask questions about specific clients, or they share information about billing for stuttering services, or just any number of things. So you can ask questions and people literally from around the world will answer them. So that's my push, to join a special interest group based on what where you land when you, if not now, which I would totally recommend because it's only $10, and I think it's $40 once you're a full-fledged member. Then definitely after, once you've settled into where your clinical life is going to be spent. So the way I have always thought about stuttering versus other dysfluencies is stuttering is an abnormal break. It is usually characterized by some sort of tension, but the truth of it is that when you hear stuttering, you heard it. You heard it. Versus when you hear other things that are just kind of, I don't know, what we all do as we're thinking about what we're going to say, or if we're tired or anxious or whatever. So let's talk about stuttering like dysfluencies first. All right, so sound syllable repetition. So the way that, so this information is in your book. Like I said, it kind of starts at page 63, but what it goes on page 65. What do I measure in the child's speech? And that's what we're going to talk about now, are types of dysfluencies. So we're talking about types, and then we're going to talk about frequency, how often do they occur, duration, how long do they last, and severity, like how much tension and extra stuff comes with that moment of stuttering. Okay, so page 65 starts with talking about types of dysfluencies. And then blah, blah, blah. On page 66, there's a great summary table that is kind of exactly what I'm talking to you about right now, non-stuttered versus stuttered dysfluencies. And then on page 67, it shows you a dysfluency count sheet, and we'll get to that in a couple minutes. But he defines them slightly, he uses slightly different abbreviations than what I've got, what I'm showing you right here. So, but you can see it in the legend. Like, can you see that, or is it still itty bitty because you just have my tiny, oh, I know what to do, hold on. How about now? Can you see it? It's there.
If I
You can
put in
see it if
picture
you,
view,
oh.
it's up. Oh, sorry.
No, Georgia, good.
One of those in the forums
Yeah.
on Blackboard somewhere.
Yeah, it's in the forums, but this is the one in your book, and he defines the stuttering like versus non-stuttering like just a little bit differently than I do. So whereas I have, I'm going to go back to sharing. Okay, so you're just seeing slides, not the presenter page crap. Is that correct? Thank you. Appreciate your thumbs up so much. So I have SSR for sound syllable repetitions, and he uses a capital R, capital S instead. You know, whatever, but I just wanted to alert you that we're talking about the same thing. We just have them coded slightly different. And then he uses a capital R and a W for whole word repetitions. And the capital R it's a repetition. So the stuttering is a repetitive behavior. So that's the R, and then the W is for whole word, and the S is for sound / syllable repetition. And then he uses just P for prolongations, which I think is actually a better way to do it. Like, so an audible sound prolongation is just a P. And then instead of inaudible sound prolongation, he calls it a block, which I think is also better. So here, I'm going to use my lovely annotation tool. You guys know how that always turns out really good. So actually, instead of using the drawing tool, I'm going to use a text box so that it's slightly less horrifying. Okay, so for sound syllable, of course, yellow, because that shows up perfectly. Okay, let's do that. Okay, so for sound syllable repetition, your book uses RS. And then for whole word repetition, it uses RW. And then for audible sound prolongation, it just uses P for prolongation. And then for inaudible, it uses B for block. Oops. Does that make sense? Okay, do you want examples of these kinds of stuttering like fluencies? Sorry, I don't have my chat. There it is. Yes. Okay. I would be glad to. So a sound syllable repetition is going to be something like mom or baby. Let's see. And then we went to the store. You'll see sound syllable repetitions on sounds that, like, this can make complete sense when I say it, stop sounds, right? Because the nature of a stop sound is that the sound has to stop. So b, d, yeah, so b, h, d, the, I don't think I'm missing. They're just the 6, right? You know how sometimes when you ask little kids colors and they're like, don't you know your colors? You're like, well, yeah, I do. And I was curious if you did. This is one of those moments. You're like, shit, this is stuttering. Why are you asking me about stop sounds? Because none of it ever goes away. It's all related. And stuttering and fluency disorders, to me, like, one of the reasons I love them so much is because you have to use all of the information you've acquired as a speech language pathologist in the evaluation and treatment process. So what you know about articulation, what you know about language development, what you know about cognitive processing, all of those things, what you know about anatomy, come together in the disorder of stuttering in particular. So how many stop sounds are there?
I think it's just those 6.
Thank you, Kelly. Anybody have a different answer? Okay, so it used to be, oh, I know why. All right, so my eye line is going to be really weird because I'm putting the chat up to the right and I've got your not faces that I can't see, which is just disturbing and awful to me, to my left. So as I'm looking around, that's what I'm looking at. Actually can't have the chat box that big. Yeah, I can. Nobody cares. Okay, so sound syllable repetition, the or or what else? A lot of folks who stutter and have sound syllable repetitions, it is on sounds with stops. So as the sound has to stop. So girl or can. So giving you kind of background information on about stuttering in general. So some things that we know about the disorder of stuttering itself. Stuttering tends to happen at the beginning of words. In fact, stuttering tends to happen at the beginning of a word, at the beginning of a sentence, or at a clause boundary. So if you have complex sentence and you have multiple clauses in it, so the simplest one being a compound sentence, where you're saying, he went to the store and got vegetables. So that connector word where the clause boundary is also likely to be stuttered. From a planning and processing model, and it's because the complexity of it is draws more resources cognitively than a simple utterance. Does that make sense? The same way that a more complex word or a multisyllabic word draws both more cognitive or linguistic planning capability as well as motor planning capability than a monosyllabic word. And certain sound combinations, same thing. So these are all things that you have to keep in mind when you're picking treatment targets. So anyway, going back to stuttering like disfluencies and figuring out, are they happening during assessment? So a whole word repetition is exactly what it sounds like. So if you have a kid that goes and then we went to the store, that's a whole word repetition. So there is some debate in the stuttering community whether whole word repetitions are in fact stuttering versus just something all younger children do to buy themselves processing time. So is it actually stuttering or is it an other disfluency? So Dr. Yaris and I agree that whole word reps are stuttering, with the caveat that it's a matter of, again, frequency and duration. So if you hear a young child, and little kids tend to do this a lot, especially as they're learning the dynamics of turn taking, and they realize that if they just don't stop talking, then usually the other person won't interrupt them. So The problem is, though, is that when you're 3 and 4 years old, there are only so many topics that you really have the life experience and vocabulary to speak on for an extended period of time. So what they'll do is they'll go and there's a tape measure on my desk, right? You know, they are looking around. The and is just buying them time to think of something else to say. Whereas, and that's not stuttering. And the way you can tell is, again, frequency and duration. And so a child who stutters that goes and once it gets past 3 iterations, so if it's and, but once it gets to and, it catches your ear more, and it is more indicative of stuttering than not stuttering. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so prolongations or audible sound prolongations are just that. They are the when you can hear the sound just being held on to. So for example, someone who goes and then we went to the store, that's an audible sound prolongation. Sometimes it's hard to tell whether it's whether it's a prolongation or a sound syllable repetition, because for example, when like with the and, you have and, well, it's not necessarily a repetition of the sound, it's your vocal folds flapping around in there. You see what I'm saying? Bottom line is that counting disfluencies and stuttering is not a perfect enterprise. You you could listen to the same sample over and over and over again, and you may or may not get the same amount of stuttering versus fluent utterances every time. So what you get is a margin of error. So you want to be within 2 to 3 disfluencies in reliability with yourself. Like, you do get a lot more reliable as you practice, but you will drive yourself completely insane if you go back and listen to the same speech sample over and over and over again. Was that 6 iterations or was it 5? Was it, you know, like how many times they repeated it? You'll make yourself nuts. At some point, you just have to, it's not guess, but decide that, okay, this time I got 3, that time I got 4 iterations, whatever. Which in an iteration is how often the sound is repeated or the word is repeated. So and is 5 iterations. Bat is 6 iterations. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Thank you. So anyway, but so let's say that you get 4 iterations one time, you get 6 iterations the next time, you get 5 iterations the next time. Well, you can extrapolate based on your data that it's probably 5 right? Because you got 4 that one time, but you got 6 the next time, and then you got 5 another time. And so it's somewhere between 4 and 6. So pick 5. And you're not going to misdiagnose someone by being off by 1 or 2 iterations. You can misdiagnose someone if you're off by, 4 to 5, but I would say that yeah, that level of unreliability you would be aware of, and you would keep doing it until you got it honed in smaller. Okay, so part of that whole diatribe was to say is sometimes it may sound like an audible sound prolongation or a prolongation, but you can't decide, is it a prolongation or is it a sound syllable repetition? The key here is to decide what you think it is and stick with it. If you're going to call it a sound syllable repetition, then stay with that. And the next time you hear it, call it a sound syllable repetition. If you're going to call it a prolongation, then the next time you hear that same pattern, call it a prolongation. Does that make sense? But you can't call it a repetition one time and a prolongation another time when it's the exact same thing. Does that make sense? Thank you. So the way I described it, or have described it, is, when in science class or whatever, they talk about if you have a measuring stick and it's been beaten up in your closet a little bit, so it's off by, let's say, 1/4 of an inch, and you're measuring everything with it, the measurement error is 1/4 of an inch because it's off just a little bit. But if you're measuring the same, let's say you're measuring how much your plant grew this spring, so you measure it with your rickety measuring stick at the in March, and then you measure it in June with the same rickety measuring stick. Well, you can still say the difference between how big it was in March and how big it was in June was however much, because you measured it with the same wrong thing. Does that, or same imperfect thing? Does that make sense? You're going to be imperfect is what I'm telling you, and you just need to be consistently imperfect. Okay, so a block is when sound starts to come out or doesn't start to come out, and all of a sudden there's this pause that shouldn't be there. So I had a kid who on my caseload who stuttered on the word Star Wars, and he would go Star Wars. So he would get the first part of the word out, and then he would block, and then he would continue on. I had another kid in my middle school group who would get stuck like at the beginning of a sentence, which makes complete sense because stuttering tends to occur most frequently at the beginning of a word, especially at the beginning of an utterance. And so if you asked him a question, he would pause, and you're like, oh my God, is he going to answer? And then the word would just kind of shoot out. And what you hear is this increase in volume. Sometimes it's an increase in pitch, but it's that hard onset right at the beginning of the word that alerts you that block has happened. Or, I mean, if it's like the kid who was on my caseload who blocked in the middle of a word, then it's really obvious. It's the ones that are prior to the initiation of speech at the beginning of an utterance that sometimes are harder to catch. And those are going to be the ones where once you get to know your client, you'll be able to see it in their face. You may be able to see tension in their larynx or in their jaw or whatever. Or my middle school client used to shift in his seat. And I think it was a way he was trying to kind of just break that muscle tension by moving just a little bit. All right, so sound syllable repetitions are but mom. Whole word repetitions are mom. Nope, that's a prolongation. Sweet Moses. Mom, 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 mom. That's a whole word repetition. Sound prolongation would be mom. And then in auto prolongation. I'm going to mute for just a second. I'm going to pause and mute. Zoom recording. Okay, so in block would be something like Star Wars, or one of my really good friends in my doctoral program, Ken Melnick. He's actually a professor at Worcester State University in New York, and he is also a person who stutters. And the first day we were at Vanderbilt and we were doing orientation, whatever, somebody asked him his name, and I didn't know that he was a person who stutters. And they're like, "Oh, what's your name?" And he went, "Ken." And in that moment, I am ashamed to say, I was like, "Oh, dude, forgot his name." And then of course, when it came out, I was like, "Oh no, he's just a person who stutters." But it's that sort of pause that makes you wonder, oh wow, do they not know the answer? Like, what's going on here? Do they not hear the question? Do they not have something to say, etc.? And that's a block. Okay, so that leads us to the other or normal disfluencies. And these are the things that all of us do when we're trying to remember what we're supposed to say. Hang on, I'm going to get rid of my annotations. Theoretically. Oh no, they're still there. Wonderful. Let's erase them. Bye-bye. Okay. So you have interjections, which are the things that all of us do. What are some? I just did one. I said, so that's an example of an interjection. What are some other examples of interjections?
Would like be? Oh,
Is a good one. Like is a good one. What else?
Um.
What else?
could it be two words? Like if someone's trying to say, "Oh, you know," it's like, you know, this person.
Exactly. So in that example, like and you know would be interjections. They're just filler words that we all throw in to either out of habit or to buy ourselves processing time. And it can be a short phrase like, you know, it could be um, uh, those kinds of things. So those are interjections. So I started in the middle instead of at the top. So revisions are when you start out to say one thing and you change your mind and you say something else. So a revision can be grammatical, where you say, I went to the store. So you start out saying, oh, I'm going to the store. Nope, I went to the store. That's a revision. and that would be a grammatical revision because you changed the tense of the verb. Or it can be an actual word revision where you go, oh, shoot, right? Like where you start saying one word and then you change it to another. And we all do that for varying reasons a lot. And then there are phrase repetitions where someone will say, the guy, or I hope we go to the store, whatever. That it's just what it sounds like. It is a repetition of an entire phrase. A lot of times kids who have developmental language disorder these types of phrase repetitions are called mazes, where sometimes it's repeating the phrase, sometimes it's a repetition of a phrase followed by a revision, and they're called mazes because words are coming out and they're fluent words, but they're not really going anywhere. You can't see where the end is. And those are very characteristic of kids with developmental language disorder. So you may find that in your language samples for kids who aren't necessarily kids who stutter. All right, so let's talk about the information you actually get from a disfluency count. So I'm not going to go through how you calculate each of these percentages because I actually did that in a video that is in Blackboard when I'm describing how to do the assessment project. So I'm not going to waste our time doing that. So you want to also talk about the quality of the disfluency. So you want to know, was there a lot of tension, or was it just really easy? Was it a kid that went and I have a dog? Or was it a kid that went and I have a dog, right? Like where you see more and more tension happening. Sometimes too, you'll see that with all the other kinds of stuttering as well, where the repetitive stuttering, the longer it repeats, the more tension you see, the more non-speech behaviors you see. And that happens for prolongations too, like, or even blocks, like where you can see the longer the person is stuck in the block, like their face will turn red, and then they will even almost gasp for air before they can start to talk again. So you want to know what type of disfluency, whether it's a non-stuttering disfluency or stuttering like disfluency, what type of disfluency was produced most, because it gives you an idea of kind of developmentally where they are. A lot of times young children will start out and their stuttering is iterative, so it's the repetitions. So this sound repetitions, the and the mom, and then as it goes on and it comes and goes, because that is an element of stuttering, which is super frustrating for people who stutter and their parents. That it will start to change from being a repetitive stuttering to a prolonged or a blocked stuttering. And so you want to know what type of stuttering occurs most commonly. Okay. I usually talk about doing speech rate. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. but I'll give you at least the logic of why you would do speech rate. So there is compelling evidence that the faster someone tries to talk, the more likely they are to stutter, which makes complete sense to me. It's, I don't know, it's kind of like the faster you drive your car, the more likely a small thing is to cause you to have a wreck. The other thing that we know about speech rate is that a child who is in an environment with a speech rate is very, very rapid, is more likely to try to talk rapidly, and may not have the motor planning or linguistic planning or life experience, days of living, to be able to do that fluently. So sometimes we need goals for family to reduce their rate of speech. So any of you have fast talking friends or family? No?
It's weird because my friends say I'm the fast talking friend, and I don't
Really?
think I talk that fast.
Yeah, I would not put that on you either. Interesting. Well, one of the things that happens when you're talking to somebody who's talking very quickly is you will start to talk quickly to try to match their pace. And again, if you are a young little peanut who, again, has an immature neurological system, you are more likely to experience stuttering or disfluency because you're trying to achieve a rate that your system's just not capable of doing. It's the equivalent of trying to drive a go-kart on the interstate. It's not going to end well. All right, any questions about that? Okay. So I'm going to move. Okay, so the information you might get from speech rate is the average number of words produced per minute, and that goes into what is the relative speed of the speech that the your client is trying to communicate in. All right, so one of the things that we always tried to include, and I think is just good practice, is to do an language sample analysis or MLU on kids that are, I would not do it for anybody over the age of 7. Honestly, once you get to 5, if they aren't experiencing some kind of language disorder, it's very, very difficult to keep up with them because the number of words that they churn out per utterance is so long. And their rate of speech is so much faster than younger kids. But you want to have at least 50 multi-word utterances. So single word utterances do not count. And that gives you an idea of grammatical usage during spontaneous speech. I always think I need to change this from saying running speech, because 100 years ago when I was trying to be a runner, I was like, yeah, running speech is really different than just spontaneous speech. But there's a lot more gasping, at least when I was trying to run. So, but what you're looking at in this part of your speech sample is the grammatical usage. So are they right on target with the number of words and morphemes and number of different words and developmental morphemes that they're using. And it gives you an idea of the relative length of utterances, because the other thing we know absolutely to be true is that the longer an utterance is, the more likely it is to be stuttered. The more complex an utterance is, the more likely it is to be stuttered. So those aren't always the same thing. You can have a really long but simple utterance, and you can have a utterance that's not a lot of words that has a lot of grammatical complexity. So think about if I said, the dog and the girl ran to the store. The dog and the girl ran to the store. That is 9 morphemes and 9 words wrong. Long. Versus if I said, Susie's dog's house is under Bob's shrubs. Okay, that's 10 morphemes, the way I so deftly calculated it. So Susie's, that's 1 word. Dogs, that's, so Susie's, it's 1 word, but 2 morphemes because it has the possessive on it. Dogs, well, it could be plural and possessive, but let's just for the sake of it say it's just possessive in this context. So that's 2 morphemes, but 1 word. House, that's 1 morpheme. Is, under, those are each 1 morpheme. Bob's, again, possessive. What did I say? Bob's something. See, that's what happens when you make your examples up, like on, like as you're walking. All right, you get the point, right? Like some things are, you don't have as many words, but you have a bunch of morphemes, which is complexity. And some things are just long because there's a bunch of words. Got it? Thanks, Jordan. I don't know, you want me to ask my class?
No.
She asked me if Tyler was in the bathroom, and I was like, okay, so that's the information we get from MLU. One of the other things we know about MLU is that, I already said that, is that if a child is, all right, so remember, MLU stands for mean length of utterance, which is the average length of the utterance, either in morphemes or in words. So let's say that a child has an MLU of 3. We'll say that's in morphemes. So an MLU of 3 in morphemes, and they're churning out an utterance that has 10 or 11 morphemes in it, they're going to stutter on that utterance, or much more likely to stutter on that utterance, because they're pushing their system well above what it can usually do. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Thank you. Which is why you want to, one of the other reasons to do MLU is that during treatment, part of your treatment may be to try to get your client to use utterances that are closer to their MLU, so that they find that sweet spot, kind of that zone of proximal development where they can be fluent. All right, so that's that. So during all of this, the pieces and parts of collecting your spontaneous sample, you are going to get the components you need to do the stuttering severity instrument. So this is based off of the SSI-3 because it's out of print now. And so I'm not violating copyright to show it to you because I have a picture of it on the next slide. So thank you. The information that you're going to get or you're going to use from your spontaneous sample are the frequency of stuttering. So that's not total disfluency. That is the percentage of stuttering for your sample. Then you're going to find duration of the 3 longest stutterings. And then you're going to evaluate concomitant or non-speech behaviors. So this is an example of the SSI-3. And the way it works is that you, let's say that, sorry, I've still got the, there we go. All right, so the example in your book on page 67 has the stuttering disfluencies, the percent stuttering disfluencies as 15.5. So you look over here, and this is just a speaking task, and you can see that between 12 and 21% gives you a score of, equates to a score of 16. Okay, from the example in your book, he talks about very fast speaking rate for child and dad, prolongations 1/2 to 1 second long, more tension and struggle during storytelling. So if you do a storytelling one, then you use, well, you may use, if you do a reading task, you may use this side where you have both the speaking task and the reading task. I normally just do the speaking task because reading fluently to me is a completely different skill, but we're not going to get into that. So 1.5 to 1 second. So what you're looking at here in the duration piece is it will show you, so 1/2 to 1, I would put that in the 1/2 second category because it's 0.5 to 0.9. So I'm going to give it there. And that gives you a score of 4, equates to the scaled score of 4. Then physical concomitants, again, using the example in your book on page 67, it says more tension and struggle during excited storytelling. So we know that there is tension and struggle. So we're looking for things like distracting sound. Like I said, sometimes people who are doing prolongations will have almost a gasping sort of thing. So that would go under noisy breathing. And then you have to figure out, okay, was it noticeable only because I'm a speech language pathologist and I was looking for it? Would it be noticeable to just somebody who's not a speech pathologist? That's the 2. And then is it distracting? Like, whoa, like every time you heard it, you're like, whoa, you're gasping. Or is it very distracting where you're like, oh my gosh, where's the AED in my building? Or severe and painful looking, which also is where's the AED in my building and is there a rescue inhaler available? So let's say that it's just in the distracting where you're like, whoa, that's a lot of gasping. And then same thing, you're looking for facial grimaces. So sometimes there are, you'll know, like, when you see it. Head movements, sometimes you get like almost a bobbing sort of thing, again, just trying to break that tension and get that word, trying to push that word out. movements of extremities, you know, we all gesture, but when a word is really stuck, you'll see hand gestures or foot gestures, et cetera, et cetera. And then you add all of these up. So I'm just making it up. Let's say that the noisy, the jaw jerking was just something I noticed because I was looking for it. There wasn't any head movement. The movement, they had a lot of hand moving, or they would, let's say that they would cover up their mouths, and it was, again, probably just something I noticed. So that gets a 2. So I add them up. 3 and 1 is 4 and 2 is 6. So I go 6. So frequency, I had a scaled score of 16. My duration, I had a scaled score of 4. And then physical concomitants, I had a scaled score of 6, which gives me 26. And then on the back of the form, there's actually a table that you look it up, and it would give you a severity that I am guessing is moderate, or moderate even to severe. I think for a kid, how old is this kid? 3-5. Yeah, it would be severe. Just off the top of my head, having done it more than a few billion times. Okay. Any questions about how that works? You guys out there? Are you alive? Anyone? Thank you. Yay. All right. I know at least one person is alive. Good times. Okay. So that's the SSI. The SSI-4 has like one more component to it, but it's pretty self-explanatory. You'll be fine. Okay. So that brings us to talking about the interview. So I'm going to pause for a moment